Hey guys, Danny with Danny Gustin Fitness Podcast here with our guest Andre Talos, or
Yep.
Talos. And Andre is a member here at the gym. I had to talk to Andre because Andre is always doing such cool exercises on the BOSU ball with bands, walking around the club looking like a seal. You know, he is just super fit guy, does really creative, interesting things. So I had to talk to him today, and I learned so much about him, a little bit of his backstory, his dad introducing him to fitness, his experience as a gymnast, and a bit of our own philosophies. So it was a really enlightening conversation, and I really appreciate you being here. Andre, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is awesome. So for those who weren't here right before this, we'll put some of these clips in the podcast today. Andre took me through a workout. Well, that's a loose term. I did like 3 sets, and I'm sweating. My legs are burning. So just to bring the audience up to speed, why I really wanted to talk to you is you're a member of the gym here.
Yep.
And I would say of any one member, you stand out more than anybody else. I mean, you do these really fun, creative, challenging looking exercises, and not just looking, challenging exercises. And so I've wanted to talk to you for a while and just kind of learn more about your thought process behind those things and just dive into it. So first and foremost, would you mind just kind of explaining through some of the types of exercises you do, not necessarily in too much detail, but kind of like why I might see them and go, okay, what's that about?
Yeah. Again, thanks for having me. This is so much fun, and the workout we had before is really fun.
Yeah.
So
for you, no, it really was, because I mean, again, I mentioned this earlier, like. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, and sometimes it's very easy to fall into your comfort zone. And even though I'm challenging myself in my comfort zone, it's completely different to do something foreign.
Absolutely.
And my feet are screaming right now.
Change is hard, right?
Yeah.
But it's so nice when you do change. It's like you work these different muscle groups and everything else. But I'll start off with my background a little bit, because I think that's gonna give us a little bit of an idea of where I am and how I ended up here with these exercises that look to some a little bit crazy.
Okay, sounds good.
For my athletic background, I started in the sport of gymnastics. So I came from Romania when I was 12, Christmas Eve, 1994, and my dad worked a second job coaching gymnastics. Okay, cool. So coming here, it was a new country, it was just a different environment. And I would tag along with him to his gymnastics job, and I would just wait for him to be done. And at some point, I was like, Dad, I think I want to try this. I want to do this. I've never been in organized sports before. You've had Tina on the podcast, and she talked about life in Russia, where there was not really organized sports per se. And so I...
Would you say Romania at that time was similar to?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But growing up a little poor was, I worked a deal with the owner of the gym, and I said, hey, if I clean your gym, will you let me work out, And he thought it was great. It was a win-win for everybody.
I have to say, I absolutely love that, because I've been doing martial arts my whole life, and I kind of romanticize that idea of ancient martial arts where people just lived at the dojos because they were responsible for all the work in order to be trained. And that's kind of what you did in a way, right? Not living there, but... Hey guys, quick break here. Just want to ask you guys to like, subscribe, and share the content with others who you think would benefit if you found this video helpful, or any of our videos. Also, please comment. At the end of the day, we do these videos for you. We love your feedback. We'll always reply to the comments in the comment section and keep them in mind for future videos.
So obviously my dad coached the boys team there, so he was there a lot. And then by going there, clean the gym, I was there more than usual. But my dad really emphasized a couple things when it came to the sport of gymnastics. First off, He had a philosophy that to be a really good athlete, you need 3 attributes. You need strength, flexibility, and agility, right? And agility is, can you outpace your competitor, right?
Yeah.
Flexibility and strength work together to sort of give you the athletic component. His philosophy was sport is mechanical. Like if you have flexibility, strength, and agility, I can teach you how to throw a baseball. I can teach you how to hit a baseball or play basketball, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So he worked me hard. For that first year, I think I did very little gymnastics and a lot of running and lifting, and he was extra hard on me, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I really respect about my dad was he was very able to disconnect being a dad and a coach. So when we were in the gym, he would kick my butt and work me hard, and I didn't know how to say no. And so I kind of went along with it.
Yeah.
So the sport of gymnastics sort of became this outlet for me being in a new country, developing my English, understanding what culture is all about here. And so I think I was really able to channel a lot of that into that sport. And so my athletic journey really starts with the sport of gymnastics. Now, the sport of gymnastics is a very complex sport where it uses all of your core, and it works sort of like you start off with your core and everything else will develop out, right? And so growing up, being part of the sport.
That logically makes sense.
Yeah, growing up and being part of that sport, I understood the importance of your core being the number one component that will develop everything else, right? Now, I enjoy lifting, but I'm not a lifter. And then really in my previous life, before I started doing this crazy workouts, I was more of a runner, right?
Okay.
So running was really good because it kind of gave me that outlet of exercise, but it didn't really feed my soul, if you will, right? And it's an amazing sport for any runners out there. It's obviously a really good way of keeping in shape and everything, but there was something missing, right? And so that kind of brings me back to how this sort of journey started. Now, when I was 19, I went to visit my sister. She moved to Los Angeles, and I was going to see her for the first time. And it was, I think it was 2001, right after 9/11. So
Okay.
It was a very interesting time to travel.
And did you live here in
Yes,
the Illinois,
yes.
Chicago area
Yeah.
at the time? Okay.
Yeah, I lived in the area here. And on the plane, I was sitting next to this lady, and her and I were talking, and one of the things that she would talk about was that the problem with getting older and exercising is that it's hard for older folks to really stay motivated. And she had this great idea she said that we as adults need to play, right? So play becomes sort of like a way for us to exercise. But 2001, obviously, we didn't have any of the things that we see now, like Ninja Warrior or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
None of that stuff was really...
Ropes and gyms and
Yeah.
things like that, yeah.
It was still your old school lifting or
Machines, dumbbells, barbells,
Yes. Yeah.
basically. Treadmills and cardio.
Exactly, right? And her idea was the older we get, we lose the ability to play, which is very true. But play is really the way that we can stay motivated and exercise and have fun, right? For some reason, that stuck with me for a long time. I don't know why. But I remember this conversation with this woman. Fast forward a couple years later, and I was reading a men's health article about a man who would use parks as his gym.
Okay.
Like he would.
How long ago was this?
It was probably a couple years after that that conversation.
So still
I had.
in the early
Still
2000s?
in the early 2000s.
So yeah, that would have been still in the very early stages of that kind of calisthenic movement.
Right.
Because now it's everywhere. You
Now
go
it's
on
everywhere.
Instagram and all
Yeah.
that. You can see
Yeah.
a lot of people who are quite gifted with that or skilled,
Exactly.
right? But
Yeah.
at the time, maybe not as much.
Exactly. And so early 2000s kind of led into the mid 2000s, ended up graduating college and doing all the, started my career. And then I started running as my primary way of exercise because it was efficient and sort of easy, right? It's a good way to keep in shape.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really necessarily build muscle or give you any strength outside of leg and agility, I guess you'd say, right? Like unless you're going to do push-ups and pull-ups and all that stuff, you're not really working out the upper side of your body if
Yeah.
you run, right?
Hey, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things I really love about your story so far is your dad's ethos on athleticism. I think that's just so cool because I think sometimes we get caught up in, I think, more of like the surface level aspects of exercising and fitness. And, yeah, you can run, you can swim, you can lift, and you can do this and you can do that. And they're all separate from one another,
Yes.
right? But in this ethos, it's more or less saying, hey, those are all different things you can do, but at the heart of them is this idea of being strong, flexible, agile,
Yeah,
right? As
exactly.
you said.
Yes.
And I think that's so true. I mean, you oftentimes hear about these athletes who ended up in the NFL or something like that, and then they just decided college, I'm going to play baseball.
Right.
And then in a matter of years, they're in the MLB too.
Yep.
Right? Like athletes tend to be good at most of the sports they do.
Yes.
And what is an athlete? I think that's a really good description of one. Like someone who's strong, flexible in a way that's practical for most movements, and agile. I think that's just so cool. So anyways, I just wanted to comment on that real quick.
No, I think that you make a great point, and I have carried that ethos for my life, right? And it's such a, to your point, it's so important because sport, I kind of said this earlier, is a mechanical component. Like shooting a basketball is a mechanical way of how you're going to play the game of basketball, right?
Yeah.
But if you can't run, you're probably not going to get the ball very much, right?
Exactly, yeah. That's so true.
Right? And so so he had this philosophy, like I can teach you any sport you want, but you have to be an athlete, right?
It's awesome.
So
I think that's so cool.
So I've always I love athletics. I love sport. I love watching it. I love playing it. And I'm very competitive. So I want to be the best there is. If you're going to throw me in a soccer field, I will footwork the hell out of this ball, right? I am going to win. I'm going to find a way to win.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting because I think you learn more in life from losing, but that's a whole different story.
Next time you're on.
Next time I'm on, we'll talk about losing. Because I hate losing, but I think it's so good to lose. It centers you and it puts you into a better position to live a happy life.
And it's a place of growth.
But yeah, that's all
right?
it is, right?
Right? There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. There's something wrong with not learning from mistakes.
Exactly.
But there's nothing wrong with making mistakes is how we grow.
It's when you learn how to lose, you live. I think that's the key to happiness, is knowing how to lose in life.
Yeah. And I think that kind of maybe plays in a little bit into the playfulness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That there's benefits to being serious, right? And
Yep.
I'm not certain that the right way to describe seriousness is in opposition to playfulness, but I think a trend, how old are you now?
43.
43. So yeah, I'm sure that the more responsibilities we get in life, whether it's work, family, kids, etc., right?
Yeah.
We're almost more susceptible to being serious, right?
Exactly.
Just getting caught up in life being checks I checked this box today. I worked, and then I did this, and then I did that, right? So having that spirit of play, which I think, again, you could relate that to the losing because, again, you're just not taking it too seriously, right, is so important, right? Because I have 2 young kids, and that's being reawoken in me. I don't think that's a word, but reawakened in me. It is because I'm playing with them, right? And I wouldn't really feel to spontaneously play tag or hide and seek or lay on the grass and just look up at the sky. And there's just so much joy in that, to just slow things down and realize that, hey, some of these just moments in between are so important.
Exactly. You get it. That's exactly right. And we as adults, we forget to play because life is serious and everything that we do is serious because, we live in Naperville, which is a beautiful place to live. My pastor calls it the Naperville Achievatron. That's a really good one. I'm definitely going to take that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong at all with achieving great things, whether it's a career or anything like that. But to be able to disconnect and look at life and be able to have joy about the things you do and have playfulness about it, I think is what carries us forward in a happy way, right? Like you can see those people thrive and you can see them be happy because they don't take things too serious all the time,
Yeah. It's almost like I've thought about this before because it's just so important, It's hard not to be serious as you get older because you do have responsibilities that are more significant than when you are a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe not, depending on how you grew up, right? Some of us, like you mentioned, growing up and more poor, right?
Yes.
Some people do have to deal with adulthood sooner than others, right? But ideally, we would hope that, children are able to experience that playful phase of life.
Yeah, exactly.
Longer.
Yeah.
Right, but it's hard as you get older because the stakes are higher, right?
Yeah.
If you don't make your bed, it's probably not the end of the world, right? But if you don't pay your bills and your house forecloses and you have to find a new place to live or you're homeless, and you can just very easily see how all of these things, the stakes are higher. So it's almost like the challenge is how do you blend the two, right? Being dutiful and responsible as an adult, but also not forgetting that it's like, hey, you're here. It's not all about work. It's not all about the stakes, right?
Exactly. And I think that's the balance in life. And I think balance is a way to really speak to exercise and living a healthy lifestyle and being able to have fun and joy, right? You need to have that balance of, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to have a lot of fun and I'm going to do some things that I'm going to try and I might fail. I mean, some of the exercises that I came up with, some of them didn't work out for me, and I have fallen on my face a couple of times, which is, I'm happy that I get to work out in the morning when there's not a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Because it's very important to try things and fail and learn.
Yeah. I have to say, just funny Andre story. And I don't know if this speaks to me being a weirdo or this speaks to just that spirit of play, right? I don't think I had ever had a conversation with you. And you were in the studio doing a handstand.
Yep.
And I think I just walked up and pretended to tickle your stomach. And I think part of why I felt like doing that is like you were in play.
Yeah.
And so I almost felt that spirit of play. Wow. I didn't think that consciously at the time, but I wouldn't just walk over to someone doing a seated row and be like, right? And maybe it did seem just as weird as that, right? But in that moment, it felt like just a sincere, authentic interaction.
I do remember that, and I think I laughed.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I was in the handstand laughing, and I may have made
more core engagement, right?
I might have made a comment like a little bit to the left more, please.
Yeah, exactly. I'll remember that for next time. So there are so many things that we've talked about so far. I feel like I could take a million different directions with it.
Yeah.
That being said, why don't we get into some of those exercises so people have an understanding of kind of what some of those things are?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of piggyback off of my background, right? So running in my other life was fine, whatever, but it was missing something. And so I am not the kind of guy that's going to go into the gym for 1 or 2 hours a day and just lift. That's just not me. I can't do it. I could, don't get me wrong, I will do it maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever, where you go in and you really do work on your bench press, or you really work on those components that are weight driven, yes. But I just didn't see myself doing that all the time.
Yeah, so when you say you can't do it, you physically could, it just doesn't mentally fit into kind of like your philosophy.
Yeah, I would get bored,
Yeah,
right?
makes sense.
And not be motivated. Same with cardio. I could do cardio every single day, but sitting on a machine for half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever, is not for me, right?
Yeah.
So what I've started to do is I started to really look at my background and use that as the driving force for some of the things that you see me do. And I'll get into some of the exercises that I do. And it all sort of started with the combination of cardio as well as weightlifting, right? So one of the things that I like to do is, and I think we did one of these together, was the bar curls on one leg, right?
Mm-hmm. On the BOSU ball.
On the BOSU ball, right? So my philosophy kind of shifted, and I said, all right, well, I can lift weights, and I have enough knowledge about the weightlifting process. I've been an athlete. I've been in weight rooms in high school and in college, and I know enough about building muscle and how that happens, where I can take some of that and transfer it over and use the BOSU ball as a way to start with the core and work my way up and down. So that's sort of the way
That's really cool.
everything started. And I started off really slow. I would get on the BOSU ball and I would do bicep curls, and I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. And then I would do bicep curls in a squat position on a BOSU ball, right? And then the more I started doing things and experimenting, because that's all it was just experimenting and having fun. But at the same time, I am bringing weight into the program. I am breaking down muscle, right? I'm doing things. And so I started to really feel it. Like I would spend the day just an hour here exercising, getting on the BOSU ball and doing some bicep curls. I'll go home and my legs would hurt, in a good way,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't really work out the legs. I just did bicep curls. You'd think that your arms would be the ones that are working, right? But keeping my back straight or maintaining posture and making sure that the form is good and then introducing the weight into it was the way I started to experiment more and more with some of the things that you see me do.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about the BOSU ball, and I think it's cool that it's kind of your sort of weapon of choice, so to speak. And it's similar to that power plate we just got recently. I don't know if you've seen people using that, right? Yeah. That it plays on oscillating, right? These oscillating movements. And so for those who don't know, the benefits of being on a power plate or a BOSU ball and oscillating, meaning, or even that, just kind of moving like this, right, is your body's confused, so it tends to have to overreact, right? So it's going to fire muscles harder or fire muscles it wouldn't normally, right?
Exactly.
And so what I think is really great about that is, one, there's obvious benefits to that. You're working stabilizer muscles, you're going through full ranges of motion, working your balance, your feet, right? I've never felt my feet like that on the BOSU ball. That was crazy. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to like continue to experiment with some of those, right? But, you know, the other thing that I've noticed that's really cool about being on the BOSU ball and this power plate is it almost feels more intuitive for those muscles of the core or the hips to fire, right? Like I'm someone where occasionally if I don't squat with the right mechanics or deadlift with the right mechanics, my lower back could feel a little stiff.
Yep.
Right? And I found that when I'm on those different tools, everything seems to fire in a more wholesome way. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's just that mechanism of my body's saying, hey, I got to figure this out. And so it's almost just more in, like you said, starting from the core out,
Yes.
right? And so I could see, I really do like strength training, and I will find ways to implement some of the stuff we did. And right off the top of my head, I could see that being such a great way to warm up for strength training, even if your only goal is to lift weights. Because if you get on one of those balls or the power plate, everything is going to be firing, right?
Yeah.
So you're just that much more optimized for whatever you're going to do next.
Yeah.
Or it could just be its own workout.
Absolutely. So I can tell you that after started doing these things, I have become, I think I am the strongest I've ever been. And
awesome.
I can run at a pace that is consistent under 7 minutes. So I can run a 5K under 7 minutes consistently.
That's great.
I don't
That's
run as
awesome.
much anymore. And then the other day I was bench pressing, and I can max out 5 reps at 27% above my weight.
Yeah.
Which is great.
That is great, yeah.
So I do feel like
I love that you know the Did I
percentage-
see that in the email you sent, you're an accountant?
I work in the finance field, yes. So
Yeah, so I'm
that's
like,
probably-
okay, here comes the numbers, 20% above my, I've never heard anyone say that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's not bad for 5 reps, right? I have not actually maxed out to see what I can do with one, because I'm not in a business of lifting heavy, if that makes sense. I'm in the
Yeah.
business of being strong and feeling well and balanced, right?
Yeah,
I'm not. It doesn't fit my body type or my personality to bulk up.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think muscle is extremely important. The same reason I would never run a marathon. I think it's an amazing feat that people can run a marathon. It's just not for me. I
Yeah.
think 5K is my limit, and that's just the way it works for me, right?
yeah,
So certainly not judging at all anybody who does above and beyond that particular craft, because I think it's really cool. But I'm working my body to fit the way that I envision my workouts to get me to where I need to be.
it's almost like you're making certain that it's like, here's the circle you're in,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure that there's almost the maximum amount of transferability with things within that circle,
Yes.
right? And so I could see how here's this, and then the marathon's over here, right? Like 1 rep max is over here. It's not as if you don't see any value in it for anyone. It's just for you, it doesn't fit that, hey, this is going to have that transferability of the 5K distance or less, right? Or the, hey, me being able to do handstands and push-ups,
Exactly.
pull-ups, etc.
Exactly.
The way you want to.
Exactly. And the
Because
way
if
it
you
fits my
did pack
body.
on like 20 pounds of muscle or whatever, of any weight for that matter, that would drastically shift a calisthenic-oriented person,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it will be exactly. The point of your balance shifts, right? So you may be able to lift heavier weight, but you're not able to do as much from a calisthenics perspective.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. And what's one thing I think is so interesting about fitness, if you really pursue it, right? Actually, I guess this is anything in life. If you keep pursuing, you're going to keep learning greater truths about what it is, what really is beneath the surface. But with fitness, I think we're all really just trying to, like you said, it doesn't work for you, and that's okay. We're all just trying to do what you said good for your soul earlier, right? About the running, right? And we're all just trying to do things that scratch that itch, right? Feel like it is you.
Yep.
Right? Like I'm vibrating at the frequency I want to be right now. There's no right answer for some, right? Like I can't exactly say why I'm lifting heavy, right? I haven't had to pick someone out from under a car yet, right? I haven't had to help someone lift something more than 300 pounds while I'm helping them move yet.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not as if I could say that there's this huge functionality to what I'm doing, but there's something so psychologically satisfying.
Yeah.
Right. Like same thing. I worked with a chiropractor in the area who I really respect. And one time I was talking to him about jujitsu and how my body's always just feels beat up. Right. And that's annoying me more as I get older. But it's still, I'm like, dude, I don't know why I do this. And he goes, hey, man. He goes, everything is so much more multifaceted than we make it. It's not black and white. It's like, who's to say that X percent of discomfort that you're experiencing due to jiu-jitsu isn't worth the X percent gain psychologically you do from doing it? That feeling of walking out of there, scratching that itch of something that feels like you, that it represents you, who you want to be, the direction you want to go. And it's just not, there's no straightforward answer. Sometimes it's just the answer in your heart, right?
I would agree with that. I have a philosophy, do one thing that's hard every day, right?
I like it.
And I started doing this a while ago. And one of the things I've realized is that what I used to think things were hard are now not really, they're kind of trivial, And so I think there's a dopamine kick I get. Right?
I can see
from
that.
doing something that's going to challenge me because I have this kind of like, well, nothing's really challenging me anymore. It's just, so if I do something that's going to be really difficult, it doesn't have to be extremely difficult. I'm just saying something that will challenge me above and beyond my comfort level. You get the dopamine hit and all of a sudden, you're kind of like, oh man, if I can do this, well, what's next?
What's next?
And
it's like an adventure.
It's like an adventure.
Going back to the play, right?
Life is an adventure, right?
Yeah.
And so going back to the play, and so so that's why I kind of love using the BOSU balls because it gives me that challenge to do something that's going to be a little bit different, but it also uses the different my different background that I have, right? So it doesn't focus only on the running aspect or only on the lifting weights aspect. One of the things that we did was the kettlebell swing, right?
Yeah.
And I said one of the things that can be tough about this is that you're starting at a 0-point start and you're swinging the kettlebell and you have to use your hips to push out, right? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily about the swing of your shoulders; it's about the swing of your hips up.
Yeah.
But if you do those a couple of times, like if you do those, 10, 12 times in a row, you can actually feel like you're doing, like you just sprinted 50 yards or something,
Yeah.
So, sometimes I'll get off the ball and I'm like, I'm sweating because all I did was just swing a kettlebell.
Yeah.
Kettlebell, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. And so I love that aspect about the BOSU ball and what the dimensionality that it gives you across the multiple sets of muscles within your body.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why I think one of the things that I've tried to incorporate more into programming with myself, with clients, part of the reason why I think it's so important to have different aspects of fitness that you're pursuing at one time is I feel it's going to be the more likely to have that full effect of athleticism.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, if you're just doing strength training in the classic conventional sense of push, pull, squat, mm-hmm. that's good. It's good. You're going to get stronger. Right. And that's an aspect of your dad's philosophy.
Absolutely.
Right? But the nice thing about these full body movements that you're talking about, like being on a BOSU ball, squatting, lifting your arms up over your head, or like maybe think more of like Olympic powerlifters who are doing hang cleans to push presses, is it's not just this simple point. I don't mean to dumb it down or play it down, because obviously there's people who bench and squat, and they take it to very great heights. But it's not easy, but it is simple in a way, right?
Yes.
Where these more dynamic movements like Olympic powerlifting or some of the things you're describing, there's this almost instantaneous need for your body to coordinate and fire, right? And that is not something that is always being implemented in just conventional strength training or any path that is a little bit more like kind of like
Conventional.
conventional.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I've always loved coupling martial arts with strength training, is even if I'm training in strength training in a way that is a bit more conventional, I'm still having that athletic transferability where I'm learning how to apply that strength in a very functional, sport-specific way.
Exactly. Yeah. I would also add that I think some of the BOSU ball exercises that I enjoy doing can also have an impact on your cognitive as well, right? Because you're not only moving your body and you're flexing or breaking down muscle per se, you're also, your mind is trying to keep you balanced so you don't fall off this ball while you're managing to hold on to a weight. So there's a cognitive component to it. There's a exercise I do where I lay down on the BOSU ball with my shoulders, and I throw a ball with one hand. It's like I use a 6-pound ball, and I just throw it up, right?
Oh yeah, I think I've seen you do that.
Yeah, and I alternate hands, so it's one hand at a time, which is actually a little bit interesting. And what I try to do is I try to focus on hitting the ball at the same spot in the ceiling, right? Like that's the goal. Like you take the ball and you're like, I'm gonna hit that vent, right? So you try to go after the vent with both hands, right?
Yeah.
And it's the cognition of using your hand-eye coordination then to transfer that into the movement, right? So the movement is, I need to throw this ball, and the hand-eye coordination component, the cognitive side of it is, I need to throw it in a straight line, right?
Yeah.
So working towards firing on all cylinders of not just your body, but also your mind, I think is what kind of draws me to using the BOSU ball and being involved with exercises like calisthenics and the such.
I love that, because one aspect of any sport, not necessarily any sport, but lots of sports, lots of physical endeavors, kind of going off your dad's, you've got that ethos of the strength, the agility, and the flexibility, right? But another thing is precision.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a little bit of that too, right? It's the cognitive, yes, but it's also I like to think of my brain sometimes as like a computer, and I'm plugging in data, right? And the more consistent the data is, the more precise I'm going to be able to execute something, and the more effective I'm going to be able to execute something, right? If I'm doing a chin up and one day my elbow's here, and the next day my elbow's here, and the next day I go to here, and the next day I go to here, sure, I might be getting a good workout, but as far as becoming way more precise with the mechanics, kind of going back to what your dad was saying about so like viewing it all sports as different mechanics, right? Or mechanical. I think you're losing some efficiency there, right? And so when you're playing into that piece of it too, I think that's an advantage as well. Like you think of a baseball player, he's not swinging the bat, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's the same swing over and over again. Exactly.
You being a numbers guy, I'm sure if you could calculate out the amount of deviation for like a professional baseball player's swing, probably not very much, right? Unless he's intentionally doing so.
Exactly. Consistency is very important. And so, I agree with you. So that's why I think the other side of BOSU ball workouts that can really help people And then one of the things I'm trying to incorporate now that is new to me is using bands.
Yeah.
So one of the
you
things that we
incorporated
did.
that with me. He goes, here's the lighter band. I'm like, okay, and that's exactly what happened because I was toast.
And so it's a combination of using the full body. The way we did it, and we'll see this in when you guys post those videos, is we were in a squat position on the ball side of it, barefoot.
Yep.
And the reason why that's important is I actually got the barefoot idea from somebody working out here. So I did.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I always did the ball side, but I did with my shoes on. And I was stretching one time. Sorry, I'm going off tangent for a second here, but
No, totally.
I was stretching and I saw someone doing squats on the ball side of the BOSU ball, and I was like, "Oh man, this is great! This looks great." And this idea popped in my head, like, what if he did it barefoot? You know, like I feel like he would work more of his foot muscles, like even though he doesn't know it. I didn't say anything to them because it would be weird for me to be like, "Hey, you should take your shoes off."
Who knows? It could be fun.
And so I got that idea, and I was like, okay, well, I need to incorporate now the ball side of the BOSU ball, and I want to do that barefoot because I do feel like there are a lot of benefits to being on a ball and having your foot be able to sort of maintain that balance. And so my next step now is to incorporate some of the band work, which I'm not too familiar with using bands, but I think I'm gonna take the same philosophy as lifting weights, but with bands. And then one of the things that we worked on together,
In terms of like adding some sort of progression to it.
yeah, exactly. And then one of the things that we worked on was we started in a squat with holding the band overhand, right? Mm-hmm. And then what we did is we twisted the band in a curl while sitting in a squat.
Yep.
That's what we did. And what that does is it's going to work your bicep because you're curling.
Yeah.
But it's also going to work your shoulder because you're twisting the band, right? And if you hold it on top, what that does is it's going to break your muscle a little bit as well. Right?
Yeah.
So you're breaking the muscle. But one of the things I've realized.
Only fitness people are like, yeah, break my muscle. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Yeah. But one of the things I've realized, I started using bands a little bit here and there, but not very consistently. But one of the things I've realized with using bands that I was not familiar with before is I think it adds an extra layer of strength that I don't think you can really like pinpoint that strength that it adds. Like almost like elasticity to your muscle in a way. I don't know how to describe it.
Could I try?
Yeah?
Yeah, so from what I understand, when you're doing something like a barbell or a dumbbell, a lot of the initial inertia is at the bottom, right?
Makes sense,
You
yeah.
have to get through this point and the rest of the lift. Maybe there's another sticking point here in the case of a bicep, but most of that initial inertia is here, right? Cables and machines are more consistent, right? They kind of follow this consistent level of force throughout, right? Where a band, one, the tension is going to be changing always.
Yep.
And two, it's going to peak at the top, which is unique in its own way. You could kind of imagine why. Like if you look at a lot of these bands, it says 45 to 60 pounds.
Yep.
Or 20 to 35, right?
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? It means when it's at its full point of elasticity, it's peaking in resistance, right? Which is kind of similar to the benefit a lot of people are getting. Like, have you ever seen people bench press or squat with chains on the side?
Yep.
It's that similar idea. The more the thing is getting off the ground, right, or further away from the ground,
the heavier
it is because there's less of that. So it's peaking at end range motion in a lot of these exercises.
That makes perfect sense. Thanks for clarifying that. I did not think about that at all. So
happy to help. Happy to help. You coached me earlier, and I got to give you a little coaching there too.
No, I appreciate that. So that's awesome. So
real quick, Andre, I would love to keep talking, but we're out of time here.
Perfect.
You're definitely going to have to be back on, man, because not only do I feel like we have so much to talk about as far as fitness goes, but I can definitely tell just the way you think about things, some of your philosophies on life. Like, I think you're our kind of people, man.
Perfect.
Like very much. Have really appreciated talking to you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here, and we're gonna have to have you back on soon.
I loved being here. The conversation was really good, and I learned a lot. So thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you out there on the BOSU ball.
All right. I will. I promise. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.